Scientists are reporting that we are on our way to the biggest mass extinction since the dinosaurs. From the western black rhinoceros to the Tasmanian tiger, here are 10 animals people forced into extinction. Number 10. Mosquitoes. Obviously, mosquitoes aren't extinct yet. If there's one species that annoys the heck out of you, it's the mosquito, right? They not only give us irritating bites and buzz in your ear, but they can also transmit diseases like malaria, dengue, West Nile virus, and much more. In fact, mosquitoes are responsible for killing almost 1 million people a year. This is no joke, and this is half the number that used to die in the year 2000, according to the World Health Organization. There are over 3,500 species of mosquito, but only 6% of species draw blood from humans, and about half of them are infected with parasites that can hurt us. But just that small number has a huge impact. While they are clearly not extinct, if it is up to us, they might be on their way. So the question is, would it be wrong to kill all the mosquitoes? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has dedicated some of its funding to doing just that. Mosquitoes are bred in a lab and then implanted with a gene that makes them sterile and/or makes their offspring not develop properly. The next generation then dies before they can reproduce and carry the disease themselves. This is part of a process called gene drive, which is made possible via a gene editing system called CRISPR, developed in the late 80s. Scientists at Oxford University and the biotech firm Oxitec will then send out these sterile specimens to mingle with the wild population. The BBC reported that 3 million of these modified mosquitoes were released in the Cayman Islands in 2009 and 2010. Oxitec reported a 96% reduction in mosquitoes. So is this a good idea? What do you think? Entomologists and biologists everywhere are kind of freaking out because we don't know all of the side effects that could occur if mosquitoes are eradicated. They are important pollinators and could have a huge effect on birds, bats, fish, frogs, and their demise could cause irreparable damage to the food chain. We don't know. Number 9. The passenger pigeon. The passenger pigeon has been extinct since 1914, but the passenger pigeon made a big impact on history. They used to be found in the billions in North America and were noted for their red chests and tails, which were shaped like wedges. Everything was going great until one thing happened: the invention of the telegraph in the mid-1800s. Since we didn't need them to send messages anymore, word spread like wildfire and people hunted them to extinction in a matter of decades. The passenger pigeon became the icon of extinction, and the wholesale slaughter of these birds represented the dark side of humans as powerful predators. Things got so bad, the American government passed something called the Lacey Act in 1900. This was designed to safeguard wildlife against hunters. Unfortunately, by that point, the poor passenger pigeon had been blasted to smithereens, and only one remained at the Cincinnati Zoo. Her name was Martha, and sadly she passed away in 1914. However, now a team of scientists are launching the Great Passenger Pigeon Comeback, trying to bring the species back from extinction through genetic engineering and cloning. Do you really want more pigeons? And now for number 8. But first, what do you think about bringing animals back from extinction? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe before you leave. We'd love to have you. Number 8. The western black rhinoceros. This subspecies of the black rhino was officially declared extinct in 2011. The western black rhinoceros used to be a stunning feature of African wildlife. Sadly, like many of its kind, it was killed by poachers for its horn, which some believed had medicinal purposes. But others just like having the horn on display for status. Something to talk about with your friends. The last confirmed sighting of a western black rhino was back in 2003. In fact, the animal was thought to be dead as a dodo in 2006, but organizations always wait a few years after just in case they're mistaken. Unfortunately, in the case of the western black rhino, they were proved correct. At the time, the media didn't take much of an interest. They were so out of touch they reported the rhino's extinction 2 years after it was mentioned. The big problem is that many of the organizations that are there to help critically endangered species just do not have enough funding for all of them to keep them alive. And they also have to get the word out that these creatures are almost gone. We need to pay more attention. Number 7. The dodo bird. Speaking of dead as a dodo, everyone's heard of the dodo, right? It even made an appearance in Alice in Wonderland. In case you haven't, it was a goofy-looking thing, it couldn't fly, and was apparently extremely delicious. It became extinct when sailors landed on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean in the late 16th century. The hungry Dutchmen kept on eating the dodo until there was nothing left. That's the popular version of history anyway. The reality is a little different. Recent studies have suggested that humans have been pretty unfair to the dodo, which has been dead for approximately 350 years. Archaeologists found waste pits with bones left over from meals that definitely aren't dodo bones. And the dense rainforest environment would have made it easy for dodos to hide from hunters anyway, so they weren't on the menu much as far as I can see. So were they hunted to extinction? Unlikely. And whatever you do, don't call them fat birds. It's just rude. And the fact is they were pretty lean, but the dead specimens would often be overstuffed, so now everyone thinks they were fat. More recent official studies of the bird believe that instead of being clubbed to death by sailors, they were probably made extinct by rats and other critters the sailors accidentally brought over with them. And nobody really cared at the time. The last confirmed sightings were from the 1660s. Stuffed examples of dodos were put in museums, but this was before 1796 when the scientific community became aware that extinction was a real thing. Because no one figured that animals could actually disappear, a lot of the specimens were thrown out, so a lot of it had to do with our own carelessness. Number 6. Pyrenean Ibex. In this case, we have a de-extinction. Thanks to science, extinction can be reversed, and an interesting example of this was the Pyrenean Ibex, a wild goat that also has the Spanish title bucardo. These hardy little guys used to roam the Iberian Peninsula. Their distinctive horns were thick and curved on the males and shorter and thin on the females. They were very hardy and could adapt quickly to changing climates. That was until poachers got their hands on them, of course. That and other factors led to the Pyrenean Ibex dying out. The last of its kind was named Celia, who died in 2000. But scientists managed to get skin cells from Celia and grew a clone from her in 2009. So now she has become part of a groundbreaking de-extinction experiment. I'm sorry to say the clone only lasted 7 minutes before perishing from lung defects, but scientists are willing to try again. Number 5. La Pinta Island Tortoise. La Pinta Island is part of the legendary Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. These islands were immortalized by Charles Darwin when he used the wildlife there as inspiration for the theory of evolution we still rely on today. Also known as Abingdon Island, La Pinta played host to a giant species of tortoise. They were tough creatures that had the ability to survive regardless of whether there was food or water available. When humans came to the Galapagos, however, it spelled the end for La Pinta tortoise. Whereas Darwin saw them as beautiful examples of nature, to whalers and other explorers, they were more like slow-moving steaks. The population was all eaten up, but there's a happy ending of sorts to the story. For starters, just when we thought this mighty species had died out, the last living La Pinta tortoise was found in 1971. Dubbed Lonesome George, he lived until 2012 before he passed away. That looked like the end for the La Pintas, but in 2010, an experiment was conducted where 39 other tortoises were introduced to the island to see how they got along. And while that was going on, more tortoises were discovered on nearby Isabella Island. These tortoises share DNA with their La Pinta ancestors, so the species may have found a way to survive. About time we had some good news in this video, right? Number 4. The Quagga. Until the late 1800s, quaggas were a common sight in South Africa. A quagga was essentially a zebra, only with a brown bottom half. It was a subspecies of the plain zebra and fell prey to hunters, again, who killed so many they wiped them off the map. For over 100 years, mankind never saw a live quagga, but then the Quagga project started. The late German natural historian Reinhold Rau helped found this project, which wanted to bring quaggas back from extinction. But how? The answer lay in the genes of other zebras. Experts believed zebras carried the quagga's characteristic gene, and that it would only be a matter of breeding zebras selectively to bring it out. They worked at this over 4 generations of zebras, and sure enough, recreated the look of the quagga. They even named them Rau quaggas in Reinhold's honor. So that means quaggas are no longer extinct, right? Actually, that's kind of debatable. Critics of the project think all they did was recolor a zebra, not revive the quagga species. Well, you can't make everyone happy. Number 3. The Tasmanian Tiger. This Tasmanian tiger isn't exactly a tiger, it just got called that because of its stripes. The correct name was thylacine, and it was actually a large marsupial like a kangaroo. It also lived on the Australian mainland as well as Tasmania. Originally, it was thought they became extinct on the mainland due to attacks by dingoes and Aboriginal hunters. However, it turns out that the Tasmanian tigers fared much better, making it to 1936 before they too disappeared. They were fine until settlers rocked up on the island and began blasting them to kingdom come. There were even bounties to make sure that they were eradicated from the island. Well, apparently they did a good job. What did the tigers ever do to them, huh? Number 2. Steller sea cow. If any species had it rough, it was the Steller sea cow. This also includes manatees. Named after George W. Steller, the naturalist who discovered them in 1741, they were part of the ecosystem on the Commodore Islands in the Bering Sea. They grew to around 9 or 10 meters and weren't known for being dainty. A Steller sea cow could weigh approximately 9,979 kilograms and had small flippers that were used for gaining traction on things like rocks. What did a sea cow like to eat? Well, they didn't have any teeth, so seaweed was typically the order of the day. Because they couldn't submerge themselves, they became a target for seal hunters looking for an easy substitute. Shockingly, this meant the whole population was extinct by 1768. That's less than 3 decades. Crazy, right? Number 1. The great auk. The big name when it comes to extinct species is probably the great auk. It's been referred to as the original penguin, and you can see why. It's black and white, short, and it couldn't fly. Look at that huge beak, too. This little bird wouldn't look out of place in Happy Feet. Things certainly weren't happy for the great auk, though, once sailors got them in their sights. They used to be pretty plentiful over the centuries, but once humankind began taking to the seas, they were targeted for various reasons. Not only did they taste good, but their feathers were in high demand, and they were a great source of fat and oil. As they were driven to extinction, all kinds of horror stories came out. Sailors believed that they were witches, and they would throw stones at them to kill them. The last remaining auks were hunted down in Iceland, and if that wasn't sad enough, there was an egg that one of the hunters trod on by accident. That was it for one of the most interesting species on Earth. Pretty terrible note to end on, huh? Thanks for watching! Are there any extinct species that you would like to mention? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!